What up, shorty? Looking real good, yeah. Got another video for you today, but come here, let me talk to you real quick. Come on, get a little closer, don't be shy. Wagwan, brother. So today, as promised, we'll be doing another prompt from my journal, A Journey Within. And the prompt I wanted to do today, I felt called to do it because I've been seeing a couple similar quotes on like different people posting things that were similar, or at least to me, it spoke to this prompt. So let's dive right into it. I'm gonna read you the prompt, and then, as you know, I'm gonna share what my thoughts are and go from there. So the prompt today, or whenever I wrote this, the prompt is, what is your interpretation of the quote on this page? If you were going to follow it, what's the first step you take? And the quote on the page goes as follows. If you want to become full, you must first let yourself be empty. If you want to be reborn, you must first let yourself die. Now, I didn't know what to really think of that. I'm not gonna lie, this didn't initially bring a lot of thought at first. And I didn't really know what to make of it, but after sitting on it for a few minutes, I'm gonna share with you guys what I came up with. Give me a minute. This window's open, it's kind of cold. There we go. So, my interpretation of this quote. What did I write? Simply put, the way I interpreted this quote is, to be full, you must be empty. What does that mean? In other words, to be fulfilled. And to be fulfilled, you have to let go of maybe preconceived notions, or let go of things that you may be holding on to, and be open to receiving everything. That's how I initially took it, all right, that first part. And I think a lot of the times, like I said, we have these identities that we tie ourselves to, ideas of like who we thought we were, or who we think we should be, who we think we are. And I've said this in a previous video, but who I've always believed in my journey of personal development, that who we think we are now, and even the person that we envision ourselves to be, aren't necessarily 100% clear. And as much as we have an idea of who we want to be in the future, that idea is only that. And we're thinking of that ideal version of ourselves from a state of mind and a current place of where we are now. And I think that causes a disconnect from who we can actually become to, what versus what we think we can become. Now, don't get me wrong, there's definitely value in envisioning a better version of yourself, but I don't ever think there's going to be a very clear linear connection between who we think we can be and who we actually will be, if we are able to self-actualize ourselves, just due to the current filters that we see our reality through. Filters being, kinds of emotions and things that we've grown up with, people who've influenced us, and only in allowing ourselves to become empty of those things are we able to fulfill our life's ambition and fulfill the goal of becoming that ideal version of ourselves, right? So that's kind of where I was going when I was writing this. And allowing the flow of change to fill our cup, or allowing that flow of change to fill us, because that ultimately is the only permanent thing, or constant thing about life, is that constant change. And I think that ties into to be born again, or to be reborn, as the quote said. and you have to first let yourself die. So that, to me, also is a very spiritual sense to that, of course, right? And it makes me think of in the Bible where it talks about, now I'm not super avid or very adverse is the word I'm looking for. I'm not super adverse in all of the Bible. I know a quick couple things here and there, but to the point I'm making, what that made me think of is where in the Bible it talks a lot about killing your flesh, being born again in Christ, right? So I think that is part of like letting yourself die, and being born again is something better, something more pure, if you will, almost like a phoenix rising from the ashes kind of deal. And in fact, that quote right there is what Easter is all about, about Christ dying on the cross. The next 3 days he rose again, right? Don't kill me in the comments or whatever, but you know what I'm trying to say. So, and yeah, I relate that to like molecules when they reach higher vibrations from solid, liquid, or gas, right? I like to think of, and I was saying, I like to think of death as a comma and not a period, I'll say that again in case you missed that. I like to think of death as a comma and not a period. Why do I say that? Going back to what I just said about the molecules and vibrating at a higher frequency, it's the same concept, or at least I like to think of it that way. You shed your flesh, your atoms, your molecules that make up your physical being slow down to a rate of death, and you become pure consciousness, pure spirit, which is vibrating at a much higher rate beyond any liquid or gas. That is something that actually have no tangible grasp of what that is, and who knows what rate of frequency that it's vibrating at. So that's kind of what that quote really brought out to me, what it made me think of. And before I get into how I would follow this, it ties into something else. Whenever I get to what I really love about this journal is it gets me into this like state of thinking, where these certain thoughts, and there's a book that I'm reading as well, and I'll share with you something else that I wrote a few days ago, maybe a week or so, but one second, water break. Found this new water, volcanic Hawaiian water. Can you see that? I don't know how to pronounce that, so I'm not gonna try, but it's pretty good. Glass bottled water is always better than plastic, though. Let's be real. Yeah, as I was saying, in sharing what I've just wrote down with you, it makes me recall another grand universal truth. And I think it's very easy to get tangled in the illusions of reality, the material side of, visible reality. But we have to remember, at least, I tell myself that I have to remember that that's all that this is, really. It's just an illusion. Not to get too mystic and occult on you, but stay with me here, right? You understand the science behind some of these things. Not that I'm any expert, but I can grasp it just a bit, so stay with me here. But that's all this really is an illusion, right? And I'm not going to bore you with all the metaphysics of it and quantum physics of it all, but there are quite a few quantum theories out there, quite a bit of scientific theories that will tell you that this is just that. There's a greater truth that stems beyond the visible light spectrum and what our senses can see. There's a world beyond our senses that passes through us every passing second. It goes beyond our touch, taste, sight, hearing, all those things. Really, the closest sense to that outer, I don't even want to call it an outer world, but that world beyond sight is our sixth sense. It's really the only thing that we have that can even begin to attempt to grasp at that reality. So what am I saying here? Definitely not saying disregard all of visible reality, and because obviously your boss doesn't care about the illusions of reality and all that bullshit. Neither do your bills. However, I only say that because, for one, this is my YouTube, and I just want to talk about shit that be on my mind. So that's some shit I be thinking about, and to remind myself not to mistake what's in front of me for reality, or else I'll really miss the essence of what consciousness is, what spirit is, what that true reality is. Now, I want to give you an example that I heard a while ago, and to think of it this way, everything that makes up what we see is made of a substance that you can call living mind or spirit, right? God. And that substance is the basis of true reality. And above that substance, you get it. Say you have a pot of water, right? Put it like this. The water is living mind, spirit, God, whatever you want to call it. And then as you boil that water, you get a lot of different bubbles and steam that come on the top of the surface of the water, different shapes and sizes and what may have you. And those bubbles being representations of anything material of matter, right? Whether from planets to trees to snails, you name it, those are the bubbles. However, what those bubbles are at the surface of that boiling water is only a result of the substance beneath it. And that's kind of how you can really think of that, whatever the things that we see that materialize in front of us is only rooted from that intangible substance. So I hope that makes sense. I don't even know if you understand what I'm saying to you when I say that. If your minds can really grasp that. I know that it's a very popular thing nowadays to really, people throw around terms like manifestation and, chicks love rocks and crystals and all that good stuff and astrology, but there really is it really is much deeper than those all of those things are, like I was just saying, a result of the substance, right? But what I'm trying to communicate here on another level is that even comes down to, and tying back to what I was saying about the identity piece. Hold on, pause. Because here's another thing I want to kick to y'all real quick. We're gonna put a pin in that, and I'm gonna connect this full circle, right? So let me kick this to you as well. Going back to even the identity piece and not getting too caught up in the illusion of self, right? Stay with me now. Stay with me. Something that I've learned, right? Something that I've pieced together and heard. Even in the Bible and in Rastafarian culture, right? There's a point where, I think it's with Moses, correct me if I'm wrong, but where God addresses himself as I am the I am, right? Again, I don't know if that's, the book of Moses or whatever, but God addresses himself as I am the I am. Why do I bring that up? Because when we use that word, so I think it's the most common used words in the English language, I am. Or maybe in language in general, it's the most common used word, I am. And even that there is a borrowed name. For us to be able to say I am, we're ultimately calling upon a power that is God, that is living mind, that is spirit. And whatever we follow up from those two words, I am, it is good, although I am guilty of it as well. We're not always mindful of what we say after the words I am, but saying I am and whatever you say after, you call upon that same power, right? And that even ties into the whole, God making us in his image, right? God being a creator, ourselves being creators as well, right? And then him allowing us to use his name, I am, right? And the Rastafarians call it I and I, right? So coming back to my ending point here, concluding, so what I'm trying to say here is that really, and this might be a little heavy for you, but neither you and I are real. You know what I'm saying? And don't let that get too, don't get too lost in that sauce, but there simply is one singular living mind in the entire known universe and outside of the known universe. And at any given point, it's just two expressions, myself and the viewer watching this, communicating through a fucking black mirror. You know what I mean? Like, it's anytime you're communicating with friends or family, it's really just a monologue. There's the illusion of dialogue. And that's what I mean when I get on these types of things in this journal. Like, it really, there's a jet, completely cut me off. Anyways, at any given point, there's only the illusion of dialogue. It's only a monologue. There's one thinking mind. And we're all just fractal expressions of that thinking mind. Yeah. I know it's heavy stuff. Try not to dwell on it too heavy. Lord knows I have in the past. And you can kind of start to disassociate when you do that. But just keep in mind, being very, it's a balance of not getting too caught up in the illusion of a fixed identity, and then a balancing act of the ego, keeping that in check and allowing yourself to just be the nature of reality, which is change. So in that note, to conclude, it says right here, right? How would I follow these steps, right? First thing I would do, I was going to follow this quote. I would begin to take note, write down my thoughts and feelings. Why do I do this? As a check to see, all right, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Put it on paper. I can tangibly identify who I am, because your thoughts and feelings ultimately are who you are. Thoughts and feelings are ultimately who you are. And then from there, I'm going to write down within as much detail as I possibly could who I want to become. And that is the first step that I would do. I was going to allow myself to be empty in order to become full, to die in order to be reborn. That's it for today's video. I'm going to play some clips of a little vlog when I was in Virginia last week. By the time I post this, maybe it'll be 2 weeks ago. But yeah, enjoy that. Peace.